Hello, everyone. Welcome to SJS Writes, one-on-one author interview series. I'm Shawnee Smith, founder of SJS Writes. This evening, I am excited to introduce you to our guest, Chiamaka. Chiamaka is a Nigerian-born Canadian-American who is a devoted follower of Christ. She signs her artworks as Lady S. Chiamaka has a master's degree in philosophy and education from Teachers College at Columbia University. She has worked as an elementary school educator and Sunday school teacher for several years. Lady S writes, illustrates, and performs her stories to not only entertain, but also to prompt children to think creatively and philosophically about important biblical lessons, which allow the lessons to be truly internalized. She believes that stories are a fundamental tool for shaping the character of developing minds. She hopes that her stories can help foster godly characters. Welcome, Chiamaka, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
So happy to have you. I've been reading the two books to my daughter before she goes to bed at night. And I know I'll continue to do that as she gets older and can understand.
Yay. Oh, thank you.
You're so welcome. So, who or what inspired you to become a writer?
So, two things I would say. First of all, God, of course, because I feel like it's a talent he put within me, and he so many things that happened in my life made me aware of the fact that he wanted me to use this talent in the way that I'm currently using it. So yes, my main inspiration was God, but I feel like my mother is another source of inspiration because she herself is an author, and seeing that she was able to do it made me believe that I too can do it. So I'll pick up the pen and get to working.
Oh, that's fantastic. So your mother, she influenced you to write specifically Christian children's books, or is that like another passion for your really educating children on the biblical principles?
Um, my mother did write Christian children's book back home in Nigeria, and I assisted her with selling them. However, her main focus is adult fiction. I think what really drew me to writing children's books was, working with children. Just the time I spent working with children in New York, as a tutor, working in the foster care agency, teaching them, not teaching them, but helping them with their reading skills, it got me thinking that, you know, writing kids' books is really not that difficult. And the stories just, if these are the types of stories that kids enjoy, then I think I think I have a penchant for writing stories like this, so I might as well do it. So yes, I think it's both parts. It's in part, seeing that my mother also wrote children's books, and she was a Sunday school teacher, and she got me interested in working with children as well. And then also, um personally working with kids myself, that prompted me to, start writing children's books.
So with the
Yeah.
children's books, what age range do you focus on?
I focus on elementary school age, so from the early level readers, kindergarten age. Some kids can read even before they get to kindergarten. So I used to say from 5, but now I'm saying from 4. 4 to around 10-year olds are my target audience. Elementary school age kids are the kids that I hope I want to get them early, as they would say, because that's the age where you can really influence a child's character. Their development is really like being able to influence them at that stage of their development is key, I feel, to really building their character in the right direction. So yes, that's the age range.
That's so true. Yeah, before they get to middle school and really get influenced by their peers.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Lady S, you also illustrate your books. When did you
Yes.
first develop an interest in art?
I feel like I've always been interested in art ever since I was a child. I used to love coloring books, and I always colored in the line and colored nicely. And I got really annoyed whenever my sister would color with us because she never colored in the line and she always made a mess, and it made me angry because I like things looking beautifully artistic. So ever since I was a child, I've been interested in art, but growing up in Nigeria, being interested in art doesn't get you anywhere. So my parents, I feel, because of the environment that we were in, they didn't foster that interest very much. But when I got into high school, I had an art teacher who, you know, I think the more crucial um I think the basics, let me say the basics of being a good artist, I was able to get them from him. And then by myself, I continue to develop my skills and practice and get better and better. And I think I'm still learning and getting better in my in my artistic skills, the artistic skills that I somehow people tell me I'm good. Like, for some reason, people tell me that it's good, but yes, I've always, since I was a child, I've always been interested in art and becoming an artist. But now that I'm in America and I'm in an environment where it's actually worth something, that's when I think my artistic skills have actually started to pick up and develop.
Have you taken any formal coursework or correspondence courses for your art?
So, other than that period of time when I was in high school and I had that great art teacher, Mr. Zach, I'm not gonna forget him because man, he really did give me all the basic knowledge that I have that I've been able to build on over time. But other than that, I've not had any formal training. I will from time to time see a video on Instagram and pick up what that person is doing and apply it myself. But it's just been the what I'll call the God school. That's where I've been learning.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. I think it really spurs your creativity that way also, because you're not really influenced by some technical person.
Yes. Yeah.
How has illustrating your own book supported your writing?
I like this question because I think that even when I was just doing poetry, because before I started writing children's books, I was writing poetry, and sometimes the image for the poem is what pops into my head first before the words of the poem even start to materialize. And I'll just draw the picture, of like it would be a poetic drawing. And after drawing the picture, suddenly the words will just come to me, and I can see what words I have to write along with this picture. And with being a children's books author and illustrator, I think it works in that way as well. When I'm trying to not even trying to come up with a story, it's as if, a picture will pop into my head and I'll ask myself, what kind of story goes with this picture? And then they just work in tandem. It's like the picture and the stories. And I'm glad that I can draw them myself because I don't know if anyone will really be able to you know, get the image that I have in my head out in the way that I'm able to, or in the way that I would like them to. So it's been amazing that I can do the drawings and be inspired by the drawing to tell the story, or tell the story and do the drawing and make the story better because the drawing is better. I don't know how to really describe it, but it's just an interesting dynamic that works wonderfully for me, like being able to draw myself and not rely on someone else to try and okay, I don't think I've told anyone this before, but there was a time I actually thought my skills are not good enough, so I'm going to see if I can hire someone to draw for me. And it turned out to be a mess because every time he would send me a picture, I didn't like it. Just it didn't look quite right. And I would tell him to make changes, and he was getting frustrated. And I felt sorry. I felt really bad because I don't know what to do. This isn't what I want. This isn't what I have in mind, and I can't just pay you for giving me something that's just so off. But at the same time, I understand that it's frustrating for an artist to have to make so many corrections on their work. So after working with him that one time, I maybe a few years later, when I decided to take on, you know, becoming an author, illustrator again, I decided to just do it myself. Even if the drawing is not perfect, at least it's closer to what I have in mind than whatever this artist is thinking about. Yeah.
I think that's fantastic just to be able to get your image out.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah.
Pearl Lady Books LLC is your publishing company.
Yes, it is. Yes, I know. I'm an author who, and I think a lot of we're living in an age where people can just start their own companies now. It's not that difficult to start your own company. It's the difficult part is raising it up, making it something. But starting your own company is not that hard anymore. And a lot of self-published authors seem to be going the route of starting their own publishing company and producing their own books through it's not the easier it's not easy because you have to do your own marketing,
Mhm.
but I think that it's more worthwhile, because you get to control how your product is being marketed, and you get to keep the profits. That's one big thing as well, so yes. Yeah.
So yeah, those factors influence you to publish, having the creative control and then having control of how you want to utilize your funds within your company.
Yes, exactly. So having creative control, I think, is the key, the key element here because nobody can tell me I want to write Christian children's books that talk about Jesus, and I don't want anyone telling me maybe a little less here or a little less there. I don't want anybody to tell me, okay, even when I'm taking what creative risks, like I believe The Candle and the Flame was. It's a science fiction, and even when I'm doing the marketing for that particular book, there are people who will come up to me and they'll tell me how they feel very iffy and about it. But oh well, that's the inspiration I got, and I get to have it. You don't get to tell me what to take out and what to keep because it's my company, it's my work.
And that's what I like. I think that's the beauty of it all. Just not having
Yeah.
anybody telling you what to do. But of course you want to write to your audience, but you're able to do that in
Yes.
your own authentic way. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, and the point you just made is it's you're right. I have to market, I have to think about the audience when I'm writing a book. Yes. However, I believe that first and foremost I have to think about what God wants, and what God wants, it might not be what I believe or what the audience that maybe my current audience is not happy with it, but there's an audience. I know that there's an audience for this thing that God has inspired me to create, and it might not be the audience I'm used to, but since He's the one who has inspired it, He will also bring the audience my way for it. So I don't prioritize the audience. I prioritize God. Like I want to please God with this work. At the end of the day, it's His. It belongs to Him, and its success or failure is in His hand. So I must do it to please Him. And when He pleases Him, everything else will follow. The audience will come, the finances will come, everything else will come. Yeah.
So I believe you've answered the question as far as like how you get over the challenges, just trusting and believing God will supply your needs and get the message to the people that are supposed to receive it.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes, that's absolutely it. Even when I feel, oh, I can't keep going, or I feel, I don't want to make any more books because selling them is hard.
Mhm.
Even when I feel that way, I just have to keep going. And I have faith in my continuing to go because I know that God is in control. Like when you have God in your corner and you put it in his hands, so many things become so much easier. It just so many things just become so much easier, you know? If you're if you're relying on yourself, you'll fail yourself and you'll find out that you're not strong enough to carry yourself. You'll find that out sooner or later. You are not strong enough to carry yourself. But if you're someone who has faith and your faith is in a God who knows all and can do all, then everything just becomes so much easier. Even your hard days just start to seem easy at the end of the hard day. You just, you know, I was telling someone today that when I start the day, especially before I hit the middle, when I'm selling my books, it just seems so hard. All I can see is the difficulty all around me and ahead of me. And I don't know if I can make it to the end of the day. I don't know if I'll quit halfway. But when the day is over and I manage to sell all the books I went out with, I just forget everything. Like there was hardship. It was hard. When was it hard? Like someone said something rude to me. When I don't even remember if anybody was rude to me. It just everything just seems forgotten because you've done it. You finished. And God has helped you get to the other side of the day, and you can just rest and feel at ease and feel happy and look forward to conquering the next day. Yeah.
Excellent points. Yeah, especially when you're able to see that God knows the beginning from the end, so you can just focus on just getting the message
Yep.
out.
Yes. Yes.
So your company has published the Four Elements series, which
Yes.
includes the earth, wind, fire, and water to teach biblical
Ye-
lessons.
Yes.
What really inspired you to focus on these elements in the series?
So it was completely unintentional, at least on my part. On God, everything is for God, everything is intentional. But for me, I started with the mountain and the rock, and it was a story that came to me in a dream. Honestly, I dreamed the story and I decided to write it, and I created an animated video of it that I posted on my Instagram, and it got so many likes and comments. And because people were so, they were so receptive of it. I even sent it to my parents and my dad, who, you know, my dad is a very, I don't know, he's not that type of person who is very boisterous and into what you're doing, but he said that it was a hauntingly beautiful story, and it just it made me think. It just made me think. And then when I decided I'm going to write Christian children's books, I didn't know what stories to write, but that was a story I'd already written, and it's a story that people had already shown me that they're interested in. So I said, okay, I'll write The Mountain and the Rock as my first book, the first book my company publishes. And then after selling the 1,000 copies of it, the first 1,000 copies of that book, I decided, you know what, I want to write another book. I want to write another story. And lo and behold, I was just, I just, okay, let me just write a story about three feathers. And it's like the wind. Okay, so the feathers are floating in the wind, and now what does this wind mean, and what do these feathers represent? And then drawing the pictures and creating the stories just happened. I didn't even dream it this time. I just started drawing, and as I drew and wrote, the story fully materialized itself. But when I did the feathers and the wind and the mountain and the rock, I realized, okay, I've written a story that has to do with earth, with a rock, and I've written a story that has to do with air, the wind. I might as well just keep going in that vein. So when I did the candle and the flame, that one was on purpose. I wanted to write a story this time about fire. So God is in the fire. God was in the we're trying to represent God in the rock in the first one, and God is represented in the wind in the second one. So this time I want to represent God in fire, in the flame, in the candle and the flame. And of course, I was like, okay, we've done earth, air, fire. Let's now do water. So, and that story as well also came, you know, just as I was drawing and writing and drawing and writing, and it materialized itself. There was no real thought process of, okay, this is what I'll do, and I've been inspired by this, or it was just it just happened. And funny enough, I knew that the next story I have to write is going to be about water, but I don't know what this story is going to be. And for 2 years, while I was teaching, I took a break to teach for 2 years. And for those 2 years, I just kept trying to figure out, what is this story about water going to be? How is this story about water going to be? What is it going to be, Lord? And when it was time, I didn't have to think about it. It just came. It just all comes in God's time. So it just popped into my head, and I just put it out. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Just everything just flowed into each other.
Yes, that's how
Very.
it works with God. You just, when it's time, and you just have to be attentive and obedient. Be attentive to know what He's trying to tell you to do, and be obedient and do it when the time comes to do it.
What practical advice would you give parents and or guardians, who want to get their children to have greater exposure to biblical principles?
Sorry, what advice would I give to the parents? Um, I think, especially at the young age, for my target audience, they're really curious. Their minds are they'll soak in anything. You tell them, they'll believe in Santa if you tell them Santa is real. They'll believe in the tooth fairy if you tell them the tooth fairy is real. Whatever it is that, they they trust us adults to tell them the truth. So if you're going to tell them anything, try to tell them the truth, because if you don't tell them the truth, they will find out the truth sooner or later, and then they might not trust you. They might end up not trusting you very much. But if you tell them the truth, and the truth that comes from the Bible, which is the ultimate truth, you're putting them on a trajectory in life where they can grow to be the type of human beings that will really impress you. And I think that every parent to wants to have children that will impress people, not just not just impress them as the parents, but impress the world, impress everyone that the child comes in contact with. Every parent is happy when they hear, "Oh my God, your kid is so awesome." I believe that parents, I was a teacher, and every time I would tell a parent that, they would light up. They're like, "Oh, my kid is awesome." So if you want to have the type of child that will be that child that people are impressed by, that people can compliment you for, the type of child that will be an honor to you as a parent, then teach them the truth, teach them the word of God. And I know that teaching kids the word of God, especially at that age, is not as easy, because, they want to be entertained. Kids want to be entertained at that age, which is why books like mine are awesome, because they'll entertain the kids, but they'll also teach them those biblical lessons that are the truth, that are very, very key, very important to building their character to be the right type of people in this society.
Right. And I thought your questions were really spot on to help further the
Thank
discussion.
you.
Mhm.
Thanks. Yeah. So yeah, and oh, sorry, I should add, I did study philosophy and education in university. So one of the classes I took was philosophy for children, and in that class we went through several texts on how to engage kids in philosophical discussions, and I realized that kids like to feel like they're smart. So if they can contribute philosophically, if you're not just throwing a lesson in their face, but you're actually getting them to answer the question and telling them, "That's a good answer. Now how about, let me further ask you this." If you're engaging them in that method, in that way, it does something I think it does something very it has a positive influence on the child's internalizing of the lesson, rather than just telling them what the lesson is, rather than just telling them, "Okay, you have to trust God, because God is good and God knows everything, so trust him." Instead of just throwing that lesson in their face, asking them the type of questions that will get them to that point where they're actually saying, it's mom, I think we should trust God. I think it's important to trust God. I think that's great. So telling them, okay, so what did, for example, in my book, The Feathers and the Wind, telling them, asking them, you know, this feather, if it had done this, where would it have ended up? And then letting them answer, oh, it would have ended up, with the queen. You're like,
Mhm.
okay, so why which which path is the right path to take when you're thinking of all the three feathers and where they ended up. uh, they'll be the ones to give you the answer, and just engaging them in that way. I think it really does help. It makes them feel like I'm the one who came to this conclusion, and now this is my lesson, and I'm going to share this lesson with you like I'm the teacher. Making them feel that way, I think is very advantageous to them internalizing the lesson.
I think that's very sound advice because I know the best way for me to learn something is to teach somebody else. So it's a good
Yep.
way for kids to spread, what they learn.
Yeah. For me as well. I feel like I learn the most when I'm teaching others. Yeah.
So, Lady S, what are three takeaways that you would like your readers to obtain from your works?
So first and foremost, I want them to be able to I want them to be able to have a relationship, or not have, but seek out a greater relationship with God. Like I feel like the most important thing we can do as human beings is try to get closer to God, because if you're close to God, everything else, like I said earlier, everything else just falls into place. So if my readers can take away from my work, this is something I can do to have a closer relationship with God, I think that's the primary thing. That's my primary goal. Like, I want to have a closer relationship with God. And through this lesson, I found another step that will lead me on that path to having a closer relationship with God. And then I also want them to be entertained. Honestly, I want everyone who reads my books to feel like, oh, I've just enjoyed a good story. Because life is tough. Life is tough, and we're always looking for something to distract us from the difficulties. And entertainment is something wonderful. It's a wonderful distraction from the difficulties of life. And if my book can be that entertaining element in your life, I'll be so happy. So yes, be entertained, develop a good relationship with God, and those are the two things I would say. Yeah.
Fantastic. What current or upcoming projects or events would you like to share with the audience?
Um, I every month I do book readings, so I try to make sure I do a book reading every month. And if you're not subscribed to my website, please subscribe, because you will get a personal email invitation to all the events that are coming up. I don't usually plan the event. I'm not Sometimes I am able to plan it ahead of time, but sometimes they just fall on my lap and I just go with the flow. So if you're subscribed, you'll be able to be informed and know when the next events are happening. And then I don't know, just follow me. Generally follow me on my social media platforms, because I'm planning to start creating animated videos and story hour. I have videos coming up that are going to be very entertaining, that are going to go along with the stories that I'm planning to write. And some of those things, they're not even going to end up becoming books. They'll just be videos, just like The Mountain and the Rock was initially a video that I posted to my Instagram. Some of the stories that I'm working on are just going to end up being videos. And those of you who follow me on my social media and are subscribed to my website, you'll be able to enjoy those when they come up. So yeah. Yeah.
So, Lady S, can you tell the audience again how can they connect with you and purchase your books?
You can visit my website. That's pearllady-s.com. So pearllady-s.com. illustrator.com. That's my website. And on the website, you can see all of my books and read a little bit of each of them. You can also follow my social media pages, Pearl Lady Books, and those my social media they all have links to the website as well. So from my Instagram, you can click on the link to my website. So yeah, follow me there. You can also, oh, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll be following this journey, this very, very difficult journey that I'm taking in being an entrepreneur. I think some of you will find it entertaining, and I'll really love the support. So please follow me there.
That sounds great. And I'll definitely make sure I put all your social media links and website into the description of the YouTube video.
Thank you.
Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your story and for providing inspiration and encouragement to those out there.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I am so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.